There are 5 dead animals decomposing in my bathtub, and my wife just asked if we have room for a 6th. I should back up. We're both healthcare professionals. She's a nurse, I'm a radiologic technologist, and we met during her clinical rotations 8 years ago. Our relationship has weathered career changes, family losses, and financial struggles. Student loan debt, a miscarriage, her father's sudden death from a heart attack. Through all of it, we were each other's constant. We're not impulsive people. We don't make rash decisions. Until 3 weeks ago, we were the kind of boringly normal couple that our friends would joke about. Synchronized schedules, meal prep on Sundays, the same coffee order every morning at the same cafe. Our jobs require a certain level of desensitization. You can't work in healthcare without developing a thick skin around blood, gore, and the general messiness of the human body. I've seen things that would make most people faint. She's held the hand of dying patients more times than either of us can count. We thought we were unshakable. 3 weeks ago, I came home from a double shift at the hospital. I'd been on my feet for 16 hours straight, dealing with a multi-vehicle accident that brought in 7 patients, 3 of them critical. I was exhausted, running on fumes and the stale coffee from the hospital cafeteria. All I wanted was to come home to my wife, eat whatever she'd cooked for dinner, and collapse into bed. But when I opened the front door, I was met with silence, complete, absolute silence. No music playing from the kitchen speaker. She always had something on, usually indie folk or jazz. No sizzling from the stove, no TV murmuring in the background, just nothing. "Babe?" I called out, setting my keys on the entry table. No response. I walked through our small house, checking each room. The kitchen was untouched, no signs that dinner had even been started. The living room was empty. Our bedroom door was open, the bed still made from this morning. I felt the first flutter of concern in my chest. That's when I saw her through the back door window. She was kneeling in our backyard, her back to me, completely motionless. The evening sun cast long shadows across the grass, and she was positioned right in the center of our lawn, like some kind of statue. I opened the back door and stepped out. "Babe, everything okay?" No response. She didn't even flinch at the sound of my voice. The grass crunched under my shoes as I walked toward her, that oddly satisfying feeling that I'd always enjoyed, especially after a long day. But this time it felt ominous. Each step seemed too loud in the silence. "Babe!" I reached out and touched her shoulder gently. She startled, her whole body jerking at my touch. Her head had been facing down, back arched, completely absorbed in whatever she was holding in her hands. When she looked up at me, I saw tears streaming down her face, and for a moment my heart melted with concern. What had happened? Was someone hurt? Had she gotten bad news? But then my eyes traveled down to her hands, and the question died in my throat. Cradled in her 2 open palms was a crow, relatively large, maybe 14 inches long, stiff with death. Its eyes stared forward, glassy and void of life, reflecting the dying sunlight. But what made my stomach turn wasn't just the dead bird itself. Across its chest, beginning just below its head and reaching down to its belly, was an open gash that exposed the bird's intestines through a puddle of blood that had pooled beyond my wife's hands and onto our grass, staining the green blades dark red. "What?" I began, but she cut me off with a sob. "I saw it through the kitchen window," she said, her voice breaking. It was flapping around, over and over, just struggling. There was blood everywhere. I came out to help, but by the time I got here, it was already dead. I looked at the trail of blood she was talking about, a dark line that led from our back fence toward where she was kneeling. The bird must have been injured somewhere else and made it this far before dying. "Okay," I said slowly, trying to process. That's sad, but babe, we should probably bury it or something. You don't need to." "I want to keep it," she interrupted. "What?" "Just for a little while in the guest bathroom." She looked up at me with those tear-filled eyes, and I saw something in her expression that I couldn't quite name. "I want to examine it, the anatomy. You know how we are, we're both medical professionals. It's just curiosity, scientific curiosity." I stood there, looking down at my wife holding a dead, mutilated crow, and tried to figure out if this was normal. Was this just physician curiosity, like she said? Healthcare workers did have a different relationship with death and the body than most people. We'd both studied anatomy extensively. Was this really that different from the cadavers we'd worked with in school? Please, she asked, just for a few days. I should have said no. I should have insisted we bury the bird and that she talk to someone about why she was so affected by it. But I was tired, and she was crying, and I didn't want to have an argument after the day I'd just had. Okay, I said, just for a few days. The relief on her face was immediate and intense. She stood up carefully, cradling the crow like it was something precious, and walked past me into the house. I followed her to the guest bathroom and watched as she gently laid the bird in the bathtub, positioning it carefully on an old towel. "Thank you," she whispered and kissed my cheek before leaving the bathroom. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the crow in our bathtub, its dead eyes staring at nothing. But more than that, I couldn't stop thinking about the look on my wife's face when she'd asked to keep it. There was something there beneath the tears and the reasonable explanation that had felt off. 4 days later, I came home from work to find her sitting on our driveway. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had gotten off early for once, a rare occurrence, and I was actually looking forward to spending the evening with her. Maybe we could watch a movie, order takeout, just relax together like we used to. But as I pulled into our driveway, I saw her sitting there on the concrete, her legs crossed, looking down at something in her lap. I parked and got out of the car. "Hey babe, what are you doing out here?" She looked up, and there was that same expression from 4 days ago, something between fascination and sorrow. In her hands was a dead squirrel. "I found it by the mailbox," she said. "I think it got hit by a car. Look, you can see the tire marks on its side." I moved closer and saw that she was right. The squirrel's midsection was flattened, and there was a similar gash along its belly, exposing its internal organs. "We should," I started. "Can I keep this one too?" she interrupted. "With the crow?" Something cold settled in my stomach. "Babe, the crow is still in there. You never examined it. It's just been sitting in the bathtub for 4 days. "I know," she said, "but I can keep them both. There's room." I wanted to argue. I wanted to ask why she hadn't actually done anything with the crow if her interest was really scientific. I wanted to ask why she seemed so eager to collect dead animals. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was, "Okay." That night, I went into the guest bathroom. The crow was exactly where she'd left it 4 days ago, untouched except for the progression of decay. The smell was starting to become noticeable. The squirrel was positioned next to it, laid out in the same careful way. I didn't say anything to her about it. I just closed the bathroom door and tried to pretend everything was normal. The following week, everything escalated. I was in our bedroom one evening, folding laundry and half watching a documentary, when I heard the front door burst open. My wife ran into the house, her voice high and urgent. "I need your help now." I dropped the shirt I was holding and ran to the living room. She was standing by the door, breathing hard, her face flushed. "What happened? Are you okay?" "On my run," she panted. "I saw a dog get hit, a Yorkie puppy. It's still on the road. We need to get it before another car comes." "Babe, if it just got hit, we should call animal control or..." "There's no time. Please, just help me." Against my better judgment, I followed her. We jogged 3 blocks to where she'd been running, and sure enough, there was a small Yorkshire Terrier lying in the street. It couldn't have been more than a year old. A car was slowing down, the driver looking uncertain about what to do. My wife waved them on and scooped up the dog before I could say anything. Its neck was bent at an unnatural angle, clearly broken on impact. Blood seeped from its mouth and from a wound in its side. "This is someone's pet," I said as we walked back to our house. "We need to check for a collar, contact the owner." "It doesn't have a collar," she said, though I hadn't seen her check. "And we will. We'll put up signs tomorrow, but for tonight, we can't just leave it in the street." Back at home, she added the puppy to the bathtub. 3 dead animals now, all with similar wounds, all in various states of decay. The smell was becoming unbearable. "I'm going to clean in there tomorrow," she promised, sensing my discomfort. I need a little more time." But tomorrow came and went, and she didn't clean. She didn't examine any of them. She just went to work, came home, and occasionally I'd find her sitting on the edge of the bathtub, staring at her collection. Days later, I came home from a night shift at 7 a.m. My wife's car was in the driveway, which was normal. She didn't start until 9 on Thursdays. What wasn't normal was the trail of blood leading from the sidewalk across our driveway to our front door. My heart hammering, I followed the trail. It was fresh, still wet in places, and there was a lot of it. As I reached the door, I heard dragging sounds from inside. I opened the door slowly. My wife was in the hallway, pulling something large and heavy toward the guest bathroom. At first, I couldn't process what I was seeing. Then I realized it was a cat, a large tabby cat, maybe 15 pounds, with a massive wound across its stomach. "Babe," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what are you doing?" She didn't stop dragging. "Found it by the dumpsters behind the grocery store. Still warm, must have just happened." "You can't keep bringing dead animals into our house." "Why not?" She looked at me, and for the first time there was something defiant in her eyes. "They're already dead. I'm not hurting anything." "But you're not doing anything with them either. You said you wanted to examine them, but you're just collecting them. This isn't normal." She stood up, leaving the cat in the hallway. "Not normal? We work in a hospital. We see death every day. How is this different?" "Because those are people. People who came to us for help, who trusted us to care for them. Not animals you're dragging off the street." We stared at each other, the dead cat between us, and I realized I didn't recognize the expression on her face. It wasn't anger exactly, it was something colder, more distant. "Put it in the bathtub," she said quietly, then walked past me to our bedroom and shut the door. I stood there for a long moment, looking at the cat, at the blood trail, at the closed bathroom door where 4 other dead animals were decomposing. Then I picked up the cat, its body already stiffening with rigor mortis, and added it to the collection. That was a week ago. Since then, she's been different, quieter. She goes to work, comes home, and spends hours in the guest bathroom with the door closed. I don't know what she's doing in there, I don't want to know. But 4 nights ago, something happened that I can't rationalize away. Something that's made me realize I might actually be in danger. I woke up in the middle of the night. Our bedroom was dark, except for the streetlight that filtered through our curtains. We'd never bothered to get blackout shades because neither of us minded the ambient light. Usually, it was comforting. That night, it illuminated something that has been haunting every second of my waking life since. My wife was kneeling over me as I lay on my back in bed. She must have been there for a while because she was perfectly still, perfectly balanced, hovering just inches above me. The streetlight caught her face, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. Her eyes were open, staring down at me with complete focus, but there was nothing behind them. No recognition, no emotion, just emptiness. Like looking at the eyes of the dead crow. As I lay there, frozen in terror, she lifted one hand. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her finger just below my jaw. I could feel her nail. She'd recently had them done, and they were sharp. Pressed lightly against my skin. Then she dragged it downward. Not hard enough to break skin, but with enough pressure that I could feel every millimeter of movement. Down my neck, over my Adam's apple, down my chest, over my sternum, across my stomach, all the way down to my navel. The same line, the exact same line that was cut into every single animal in our bathtub. Her finger felt like ice against my skin. I wanted to move, to push her away, to scream, to do anything. But I was paralyzed, my body locked in place by sheer terror. She knelt there for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes, her finger resting on my stomach, her empty eyes fixed on my face. Then, without warning, she rolled off me harshly, flopping onto her side of the bed with a force that made the mattress bounce. Within seconds, I heard her breathing even out into sleep. I lay there until dawn, staring at the ceiling, not daring to move. In the morning, I waited until she was awake and having her coffee before I brought it up. I tried to keep my voice casual, like it wasn't the most terrifying experience of my life. So, you did something weird last night. She looked up from her phone. What do you mean? You were kneeling over me while I was sleeping. You ran your finger down my chest. She stared at me for a moment, then laughed. Actually laughed. What? No, I didn't. That's ridiculous. I'm serious. You were right there, hovering over me. You traced a line from my throat to my stomach. Babe, she said, setting down her coffee and giving me a look that was equal parts amused and concerned. That's clearly a dream. I didn't get up once last night. You know I'm a heavy sleeper. It wasn't a dream, I was awake. I saw you. You think you were awake? She said patiently, like she was talking to a child. But you were obviously still asleep. Maybe you were stressed? You've been working a lot of overtime lately. She said it with such confidence, such certainty, that for a moment I doubted myself. Had it been a dream? Could I have imagined the whole thing? But no, I know what I saw, I know what I felt. Maybe, I said, backing down because I didn't know what else to do. She smiled, kissed my forehead, and went to get ready for work. That was 4 days ago. Since then, I've barely slept. When I do manage to drift off, I wake up every hour, checking to make sure she's still on her side of the bed. She hasn't done anything else strange, at least nothing I've noticed. She goes to work, comes home, spends time in the guest bathroom. We have dinner together. We watch TV. Everything seems normal on the surface. But I can't shake the image of her kneeling over me, her dead eyes staring down, her finger tracing that line. And yesterday she asked the question that's made me write all this down. We were eating dinner, pasta, her specialty, when she casually said, "Do you think the bathtub could hold one more?" I stopped with my fork halfway to my mouth. What? I was just thinking, she said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. There's still some space in there, if I position things right. Babe, there are 5 dead animals in that bathtub. They've been there for weeks. The smell. I know, I'm gonna clean it out soon, I promise. She looked up at me and smiled. I just wanted to know if there was room for one more before I did. One more what? Whatever I find next. We stared at each other across the table. I wanted to ask what she meant. I wanted to demand that she throw everything out tonight. I wanted to tell her that I was scared, that I didn't recognize her anymore, that I was afraid to sleep in the same bed as her. But what I said was, I don't know. Maybe. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to eating. But another part of me, the part that wakes me up every hour to check that she's not hovering over me again, knows that something is very wrong. The way she looked at me that night wasn't the look of someone having a mental health crisis. It was the look of someone making a decision. I've been researching, reading about people who hurt animals as a precursor to hurting people, reading about warning signs of violent behavior. And every article says the same thing. Collecting dead animals, especially when combined with other concerning behaviors, is a red flag. A big one. But this is my wife. The woman I've spent 8 years building a life with. The woman who held my hand when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. The woman who makes me coffee exactly the way I like it every morning. Who leaves little notes in my lunch bag. Who knows every stupid joke I find funny. How can I throw all that away because of some dead animals in one creepy night? Except it's not just one night anymore. Because last night I woke up again, and she was sitting up in bed, her back to me, staring at the wall. When I asked if she was okay, she didn't respond. She just sat there, motionless, for over an hour before finally lying back down. And this morning I noticed something I'd missed before. On her nightstand underneath her phone was a small notepad. I'd never seen it before. While she was in the shower, I picked it up and flipped through it. Page after page of measurements, heights, weights, dimensions. The last page had numbers that made my stomach drop. 6'1", 185 pounds, 32-inch torso. My measurements, exactly. I put the notebook back and pretended I'd never seen it. Tonight, she's working a night shift. She'll be gone until 7 a.m. I'm thinking about going into that guest bathroom, really looking at those animals, seeing if there's something I've been missing, some pattern, some explanation. Or maybe I should pack a bag and stay with my brother for a few days. Give myself space to think clearly. Or maybe I should do what the rational part of my brain is screaming at me to do. Call the police, or a mental health crisis line, or anyone who can help. But how do I explain this? Officer, my wife has dead animals in our bathtub, and she touched my chest while I was sleeping. It sounds insane. They'd probably think I was the one having a breakdown. And what if I'm wrong? What if this really is just stress, just her way of processing something, and I'm about to blow up my entire marriage over a misunderstanding? I keep going back to that night, her finger on my skin, tracing that line, the same line cut into every animal in our bathtub. The same line that in anatomy is called the linea alba, the line that runs from the sternum to the pubis, the line that when cut gives you access to all the major organs in the abdominal cavity. She knows that. Of course she knows that. We both learned it in school. But why was she tracing it on me while I slept? It's 9 p.m. now. She left for work an hour ago. I'm sitting in our living room, staring at the closed door of the guest bathroom, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wants to open that door, to really look at what she's been doing in there. But I'm afraid of what I'll find. I'm afraid that I'll see something that confirms my worst fears, that there's a pattern to the cuts, that she's been practicing, that those animals aren't just a strange collection, they're preparation. And I'm terrified that if I find that confirmation, I'll have to accept that the woman I love, the woman I married, the future mother of my children, is capable of something I can't even let myself fully imagine. The rational part of my brain is still trying to convince me I'm overreacting. Dead animals aren't that unusual. Lots of people find roadkill and bury it. Some people, especially those in medical fields, have a clinical fascination with death. It doesn't mean anything sinister. But that doesn't explain the hovering, the tracing, the measurements. It's 9:30 now. I have until 7 a.m. to figure out what to do. I think I'm going to open that bathroom door. I need to see what's really in there. I need to know if I'm being paranoid or if my instincts are right. And depending on what I find, I need to decide. Do I stay and try to help her, or do I run? I'll update if I can. But if something happens to me, if I don't make it through tonight, I wanted someone to know. I wanted there to be a record. Because right now, sitting in my quiet house, with 5 dead animals decomposing in my bathtub, and a notebook full of my measurements on my wife's nightstand, I'm starting to think that maybe I'm not number 6. Maybe I'm number 1.